Hi, my name is Brian Ruoff. Just want to go over a quick example of Microsoft's dependency injection framework. And to do that, I'm just using a simple application, a little web app. I'm actually not using the APIs at all. I'm kicking all my activity off from a hosted service that's just going to call stuff in a loop. But here's the configuration. Let me show you that. Like I said, here's a hosted service, and then I have a couple of singletons. The singletons will be, their lifetime is the duration of the application, and they won't be created until they're first referenced by another service. Okay. Scope services, a lifetime is shorter, and you have to create a scope first. And once you've created the scope, you can start creating other services within that. So a scope service can call a bunch of other scope services, but a singleton can't call a scope service directly without creating a scope, because the singleton's lifetime is forever. A scope service is for the duration of that scope until. So okay, so let's go ahead. So what we have here is I have a scope service. Then I have two keyed, what Microsoft calls keyed scope services. They both use the same interface, the iCreateOrder, and they have two different implementations. There's a service order and a parts order, and they have a different key value. Okay, basically this is a nice simple way to implement a strategy pattern. Okay, so you can do that with this. So that's very handy. So let's go to our, like I said, I'm kicking everything off from the hosted service. Basically, the way the Microsoft framework works is all dependencies that you might need, you put in the constructor. There are other frameworks that you would define it in the class and put an annotation above it. Well, Microsoft, the DI framework does it via the constructor. And like I said, this application just starts a task. It's in a loop, and until we clear this running flag. That's all it does. And then it calls this singleton. So it doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. And then from here, you can see what this singleton service requires. It requires a service provider and a logger. Okay, but it also, because of you have the service provider, it can actually query any optional parameters or any optional services you might want. Okay, now the service provider has two main methods. Well, two main methods to fetch another service. Okay, one is get service, in which case if I didn't provide this in the DI framework, it just return null. Then it's get required service, and that will actually throw an exception. So the different characteristics. So here we're being called, and if we're not null, we'll do something. We'll call the do something method. From that point, I happen to want to I want to create a scope here, and then I want to do other work based within that scope. So you have to use the service provider does create scope, and this will be valid for the duration of this method. Okay, so we get our example scope provider, and it's going to, our example scope service, and let's go ahead and do something with that. Now, here, the first parameter was actually the keyed value into the two different implementations we have of iCreateOrder. There's the parts order and there's the service order. And whatever we passed in, it gets the correct one and calls it. So then I call that. So like I said, this is I'm calling the parts order. So then all that will do is create this log message. All right, so I'll go ahead and run it. and we're calling the parts order. So that's a quick example of the Microsoft framework. There's a lot of other nice, a lot of other cool things it can do, but this is the bare minimum. Thank you very much.